I worked part-time for 18 years. I walked around the entrances and conducted surveys among the residents. I've heard a lot of different things, of course, and insults, and flirting, and delusions of schizophrenics. But the creepiest thing was when a voice answered me from behind the old moldy door. "Bury me, then I'll answer your survey." I still get goosebumps when I remember it. For 3 days now I have been waking up exactly at 3:17. I wake up and lie in a complete daze of horror and fear. I can't even lift a finger. And while I'm lying there, I can clearly hear someone walking down the corridor from behind the wall. The first night I thought it was just a bad dream. On the second night there was no time for jokes, since I clearly understood that I was not sleeping. The third night was spent in the company of icons and prayers. Today I persuaded my friend to stay with me. Let's see what happens. It's very scary. I got married and moved into a new building with my husband. Every morning at exactly 9:45 the doorbell rang, and there was no one outside the door. Hangers fall. I always hear noise. Once I saw a table shake, although it was clearly not an earthquake. But now there's a new feature. In the morning the calls stopped and the stamping began. Imagine, you are sleeping and you hear someone next to your bed walking back and forth. My husband is already at work at this time. He doesn't believe it. He laughs. The house was built in a field where people always just sat down. Scary. My mother told me that when I was little, we went to visit relatives in the village and stayed with them overnight. In the middle of the night, I grabbed my mother's hand and in an inhuman bass voice told her, "Don't turn around and don't move at all." And I myself looked behind her at the old sideboard. Mom, in a panic, tries to call me by name, and I answer her, "Be quiet and don't move." Then I just turned away and fell asleep. When my mother told me this, I remembered that I saw a man in a raincoat and hat. I don't know what he needed. One night I woke up. I saw a black shadow hanging over my husband. I woke him up and asked if everything was okay. And he says he had a dream that someone was strangling him. When I was 11, my parents bought a big dacha. Since it was summer, I slept near the window to keep it cool. And now at night my father wakes me up and says, "Get up, the bones have arrived, go from the well of water, get some tea, we'll do it." I'm puzzled. What guests? It's too late. Dad shrugged his shoulders, saying, "What can I do?" I held out the bucket. But I went downstairs with my father. I was barefoot, half asleep, and as soon as I reached the well, I stepped into a puddle. I suddenly opened my eyes and saw that my dad was gone. I'll scream. I suddenly see my parents running from the second floor. I'm crying. "Dad, why did you scare me?" And he, "I didn't scare you. I slept with your mother, she will confirm." I still don't know who was in Dad's place, but now that my parents have died and I'm already an independent woman, I intend to sell the dacha. Creepy. I've got some weird shit going on all my life. As a child, lying in bed, I felt like someone was sitting on its lid. It was scary to open my eyes. I moved my leg and felt that it was resting against someone. Now a new life has begun. I wake up in the middle of the night to someone sharply whispering my name. Sometimes I hear this whisper when I'm thinking. From time to time the thought flashes that maybe I'm lying in a coma, and someone is trying to wake me up. I work as a HR manager. Conducted an interview for one vacancy. The girl was late. I called and asked her to wait. But it's not difficult for me. Moreover, the candidate is interesting. In general, it happened when no one was in the office. We sit and talk. He says everything correctly, there is nothing to complain about. And I sit and think, something is wrong with her. I take a closer look and realize that she has a glassy look. The face is pale, and the hands are trembling somehow strangely. I felt scared, but I didn't show it. We finished the interview. I said goodbye to her, and she said that she would wait for me. My heart almost sank to my feet. I think suddenly some maniac has gone through all the worst options. I got ready. We leave the office. I turn my back to her to close the door. I turn around, there is no one. I was surprised. I walked towards the exit, thinking I'd catch up, but I didn't meet anyone on the way. And we have cameras hanging in the corridor. They record who comes and goes. But I wondered how she left so quickly. The next day I asked my manager, who had all the recordings on his computer, to look at the recording of yesterday evening. I begged for a long time. In the end I allowed it. We watched it with him. It turned out that in the interval in which she came and left me, no one except me was captured on camera. She didn't even supposedly come. I'm shocked. I called the number the woman called me from. There is no such thing. I ran into the office to look at her resume on the computer. No. I'm hysterical. It seems like I've moved. I glance at the table, and there is a note with the following content. See you again. Olka, what was her name? I fly out of the office in tears with this note. I'm running around the office yelling who did this. Everyone looks at me like I'm crazy. I'm sitting at home now, frightened by every sound, even though my husband is nearby. I think he'll quit to hell. The upstairs neighbor moves furniture at night. Everything would be fine, but he died a week ago, and his apartment is sealed. I don't even know if they are afraid or not. I lie there and imagine what's going on there besides the moving furniture. When I was 6 years old, I would jump up at night, run around and yell incomprehensible words. Mom was shocked. I'm 27 years old now and I still remember it. It seemed to me then that I was running upside down and head towards the floor. It was very scary. When I was 3 years old, I saw a woman in our apartment who looked out from around the corners and smiled. I thought it was a guest, a friend of Mom or Dad. But no one except me saw her. Live alone. Recently I found a video on my mobile phone where I was sitting at the computer. It's unclear what or who was filming me. But that's not what struck me. The video lasts 10 minutes, and all this time I'm flipping through VContact public pages with a stupid face. It became scary. What the hell is this? Once I checked into a friend's house with a beer for the night and had an urge to go to the toilet. He relieved himself, went out, and saw an old man sitting in the kitchen. Word for word, there were conversations for half an hour somewhere. I just can't remember. When I returned to the room, a friend asked who I was talking to on the phone, to which I replied that I was not talking on the phone, but with his grandfather. This friend of mine, turning pale, whispered, "What the hell, grandfather?" The two of us are in the apartment. We moved to a new apartment. My little son, 5 years old, constantly complained that his uncle was walking around in the apartment. I decided to shine a candle, and when I approached the corner, my son said, "Dad, are you catching that guy who just jumped out the window?" About 6 years ago, my mother and I slept on the floor. We just moved. Mom wakes up at night and sees me getting up and walking towards the wall. I sit down and start rocking. She whispers, "What are you doing? Get some sleep." I'm silent. She turns her head onto the mattress, and I sleep there quietly and peacefully. I looked back to the wall, but I didn't leave there either. It definitely wasn't a dream, simply because Mom is an adult. I'm able to distinguish reality from a dream. She was advised to light a candle for me. I have no idea what this is all about, but it's creepy. Finally went on vacation. There was barely enough money, borrowed from a friend, who will be discussed later. I've been relaxing at sea with my wife for a week when the phone rings. I look, and there is Vasya, our neighbor. "I'll take it. I hear you. Give it back." No matter what I told him, He responded with it. Called once every day. I couldn't stand it on the third day and turned off the phone. Came back home. We learned that Vasya hanged himself at home on the very day the first bell rang. Uncomfortable. My mother recently told me a story. Back in 1996, when I was 2 years old, my mother heard a distinct male voice, "Who's there?" Then again, "Who's there?" I come to her from the room and say, "Mom, Uncle is there." Mom goes out into the corridor. Nobody here. She took me in her arms and locked herself in the room. It later turned out that a man was hanged in this apartment during the war years.